So, I've been avoiding talking about this for the longest because it's an extremely vulnerable topic, but I also know that it is very much in my industry of work, my niche. It is the exact thing that I think, through my experience, I think that is the reason clients are attracted to working with me. And I'm just going to talk about it. And in many areas, I'm extremely strong and I don't mind conflict. I don't enjoy conflict, let me make that clear, but I can deal with it. It's something that I've always had most of my life. But within this particular area, it's extremely difficult for me to receive any backlash about somebody telling me that my experience is not real. And it's because it hurts, and it's because it's the wounded child in me that doesn't understand the logic and reasoning that older me and logical me is able to absolutely know. So I believe that my particular niche is working with trauma of people who are othered. And what I mean by othered is marginalised in whatever way, where they have an experience due to who they are that results in trauma, basically. And I saw this woman talking about, on TikTok, I'll try to add her in, talking about raising children who are a minority in a suburban area and the damage that ultimately ends up causing your children because of very subtle differences in their experience from an outset point of view, but how big those differences are in an internal world point of view. So she goes on to talk about how her children don't get nurtured in the same way as children who the community may see them as like a family member. They may see them as, oh, well, you know, you remind me of so-and-so. They made us have a naturally conscious or unconscious bias towards wanting to nurture that child, and how her children, because they are an ethnic minority, do not get that, but they do get it in the ghetto. So I'm English, she's talking about in America. Like if they was going to a shop, she goes on to say that it would be, oh honey, could you get me that? If an old lady had dropped something, and how the community would naturally nurture her children, and how community is ultimately something that we all need because it's that sense of connection. So something much bigger than ourselves, and I think that is a really fundamentally important part of any child's upbringing. And the reason often we are raising children out of places like the ghetto, for example, or out of an area here might be seen as more rough, is because the potential, the opportunities that live in a more middle class or a higher class area naturally are going to be better, such as academics, such as schooling, such as crime rate. But is the cost of having those things, or being able to potentially give your children those things, worth the consequence of them not having the nurturing of who they are? And me personally, as a mixed race woman, I lived with the white side of my family. I would see my dad at the weekends, and I was in situations where some people absolutely would nurture me, but it was always unpredictable, and some just took an instant dislike to me, and they would use anything against me as a way of saying it would be the reason they don't like me, basically. So I had to be very careful and very cautious about how I presented from an extremely young age in order to not give somebody an excuse to dislike me. And the damage of that, I've now come to realise, even more so in older age, just what I was masking. But that's a video for another time. But I could never get away from being visibly brown. Visibly less lovable than the children around me. If I wasn't a novelty to somebody, which was, oh, this little brown girl with these big curls and this big sort of Diana Ross hair, I would be told, then I was othered. And as a child who saw that everybody got it for no other reason, then being told that don't make it a problem, don't make it about race, whilst they had the room to be whoever they needed to be, whether that was an angry outburst, and still be loved. And I had no room to do that, because if I did that, it would be the perfect excuse to dislike me, and then tag that to my race, or tag that to the reason they did not like me, tag that to the reason why they're shunning me outside of the group of acceptance. So if I wasn't othered for my race, my visible difference, I would be othered for the fact that school just didn't come easy to me. I would be othered because I just could not stay awake. And at first I thought that was narcolepsy, but now I'm starting to see that maybe it's possibly a neurodivergence, a shutdown method, because I absolutely could not have a meltdown. Because what I would receive in difference to somebody else who had a meltdown would be catastrophic. And I knew that I needed to protect myself. And I'm talking young. And then just had a sprinkle of the fact that I'm female, a brown female for that. That theme has been consistent throughout my life, and being othered causes trauma. And that's ultimately now what I help other people through, in an empowered way, where you get to pull and take your power back. Whilst very likely having people surround you who tell you that your experience is not real. Does anybody else get this? Does anybody else understand this? If you do, you found your community. It's here with me and anyone else that we acquire along the way. This is a really vulnerable video for me, and I'm hoping that it is received in the way that I intend it to. But if not, I guess I will deal with that when. Have a blessed day.